Well, coming up, KwaZulu-Natal police say they are following up leads and widening the investigation in connection with the shooting which left South African rapper Keenan Forbes, better known as AKA, dead. Well, Dr. Levi Ndau analyzes President Cyril Ramaphosa on the back of Sona. And the death toll in Turkey following the devastating earthquake has now risen to more than 22,000. We cross live to our reporter Griselda Lewis for the latest. Very good afternoon. If you've just joined us, we are live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Welcome to the Week in Review. It is the program where we take a look at some of the big stories that have come out of the week, perhaps making headlines, and as always, getting South Africans talking. I'm your host, Liesl Wilson. Let's take a look at what we can expect. All right, so we start off with news. The family of well-known South African rapper Keenan Forbes, known as AKA, have confirmed the news of his passing in a statement issued by the Forbes family a short while ago. AKA's parents confirmed that their son was shot and killed in Durban last night. They've also asked for space as they gather information on the details of how AKA died. KwaZulu-Natal police spokesperson Robert Nechiunda says the police have opened 2 murder cases, believe the rapper and his bodyguard were leaving Wish Restaurant on Florida Road when 2 men on foot fired shots at them. Nechiunda says the motive for the killing is unknown. He has called for calm.
As the police would like to plead with residents and to keep calm and allow us the space to work. The motive of the killing has not yet been established as yet. So if there could be any revenge attack, that would be premature. And that would be illegal as well, because we would not want anybody to be killing anybody in the name of revenge. We do not know what led to the killing. We have not found the killers, so we will not know what is it that the beef that they have against the deceased or anything to that effect. So we would like to plead with community members to please give us the space to work, to keep calm, not to be up in arms. We want justice as the police, and we can only work towards justice if the community is cooperating with us, providing us with valuable information that can lead us to the suspects, and maybe then we'll find out the motive of the killing and justice will be served.
All right, so for more on this, we're going to be joined by Professor Kulufelo Rakuba, Acting Head of the Department of Safety and Security Management from Tshwane University of Technology. Prof, good afternoon to you. Thank you for making time to chat with us here on the SABC today.
Good afternoon and good afternoon to your viewers.
The nation is still reeling on the back of, this latest census killing. Investigations are underway. We do not understand who the suspects are. And obviously what the motive is at this point. But it's shining a spotlight on the state of South Africa to date. And perhaps that's where we'll start off with a conversation on the back of rapper Keenan, AKA Forbes. Can we say that the killings that we're seeing in the country have now become a trend? How would you analyze what's transpiring?
Thank you for having me. The killing is not surprising. South Africa is still reeling from the killing of a famous DJ, and upon that, there has not been much information with regard to who committed that crime and so forth. So we are so much comfortable with this kind of killings because if you remember, in 2020 alone, 30 people were killed daily and through guns. So gun violence has become the norm, and I doubt if we will be able to even know what really transpired here, because the gun violence has to do with multiple factors, and it's difficult at some point to also identify the root cause because it has to do with individual factors, community factors, and peer factors, and other multiple factors, long-standing issues in South Africa when it comes to dealing with issues of gun violence, such as the accessibility and corruption and theft and so forth. So as South Africans, it's one of those. Yes, it's to many, it's pain. However, it's not foreign. It's something that we know, and I'm sure even other superstars or musicians or an ordinary man in the street, they know they might be taken, their lives are at risk due to availability of guns in South Africa.
Prof, let's go there. You've now spoken about a myriad of contributing factors. That's obviously also questioning how we begin to silence the guns, particularly those that are sold on the illegal market. Beyond police budget cuts, beyond policy, one obviously also has to look at where these guns are being accessed from and how they are being accessed. In terms of the laws as well that have been put down, are they effective enough? What needs to change? Let's look at some of those more in depth.
Let's start with, this is the pandemic, and the pattern shows that whatever policy that exists in South Africa has not been working. If it was working, why the comfortability of gun usage or gun violence? And again, let's remember that...
Prof, I'm just being asked to pause our conversation. I'd like you to stay on the line. We're having rolling coverage of what is transpiring. We'll come back to you in just a moment. I believe our reporter, senior reporter Jade Polser, is on standby to give us the latest on her end with regards to developments around the case. Jade, a very good morning. I dare say good morning. Obviously still reading on the back of the news coming in. Perhaps you can give us the latest. What are we learning about the incident at this hour?
But I mean, it's now 1:05, and there's a lot of people coming into Florida Road. A lot of people are standing outside Wish Restaurant. Many are coming to pay their respects, send their condolences to the family, stand in solidarity with the rest of the country who are mourning the loss, those who are avid hip-hop fans of AKA. We've also seen some laying down flowers. We'll go and show you that shortly. But I want to speak to Renee Burton. She is speaking on behalf of Florida Road as well as this particular establishment. Renee, obviously devastating news coming out of Florida last night. You've seen people coming and trickling in and paying respects. Just a word from you.
I think where we are right now is that we want to do everything in our capacity to make sure that justice has been served efficiently. And ultimately, at the end of the day, this is the loss of 2 lives. And we're really desperate for the public not to forget that.
Many are saying that the fact that this has happened is really painting a negative light on this particular road, but also shading that, people are not safe anymore. If this can happen to such a prominent figure, then clearly patrons that are coming out are not safe.
I think we need to be really responsible in the narratives that we amplify, and with the sensationalization of an incident like this, there is a narrative that we can't control, but it's also the narrative that's not based on facts. So I think our primary concern now is to assist as much as we can so that justice is served. And beyond that, I think we need to be human beings first and take care of each other.
Have you spoken to the owner of the establishment?
At this point, we are opting for the no comment on that, given the sensitivity around the investigation that's taking place. But as and when we receive more information, we will definitely be sharing that with the media.
Just allaying fears for those patrons that want to come or wish to come into this particular stretch of road.
I think out of respect for the 2 lives that have been mercilessly lost, businesses will not be resuming just yet. Again, patrons can then go to social media to find out when they will be trading again.
I saw several of the businesses closing. Was that a stand in solidarity, or was that just to pay respects to the lives that were lost?
Do you know, and I think this is where we need to celebrate the sincerity of us as South Africans, is that it wasn't a formal plan. It's out of respect for the lives that have been lost that the businesses have chosen not to open.
Renee, I know many people are not talking. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Pleasure.
Well, that was Renee Burton. She speaks on behalf of Florida Road, but also the owner of this particular establishment, the Wish restaurant. I'm just going to ask Tulani Ngobo behind the camera, who's been bringing you rolling coverage throughout the course of the day, just to walk with me as I show you some of the flowers that have been laid here. And many people have been coming out in their numbers to come and lay flowers at at the step where AKA lost his life, and we'll be bringing you a lot more information and more content throughout the course of the day. As I said to you in earlier crossings, that information is a bit sketchy. What we do know is that 2 people lost their life, one being AKA, the other one, the name of the second person has not been yet confirmed by police, but we are awaiting official comment from that. The third person is said to be the bodyguard. He is currently fighting for his life in hospital. As people continue to bring down flowers to this particular establishment, many are paying their respects, many are coming out, some are still in disbelief. If we've got time, I'm just going to try and walk up this road and see if we can't get some comment from those that are coming out to Florida Road. It usually gets very busy this time of the day. Let's see if we can't get some comment from some of the adoring fans. Hello, you're live on SABC News. Tell us, why are you here today? You here to send your condolences?
Yes, I'd like to send my condolences to the family of AKA, and I feel very sorry for Cairo because now she's going to be growing without her father, and that's very sad for a child to go through. And I'd just like for the family to stay strong and to be hopeful, and I'd like the police to work on their jobs and find out the assassins. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, I can see you visibly emotional, and I've been watching you. Just talk to us. Were you a fan, and also how are you feeling right now?
It's heartbreaking, hey, to see something like it, especially if you were to hear the gunshots at night. So it's very heartbreaking. This is where we walk. This is where we grew up. So something like this to happen for someone that we love so much and dearly, I have no words. Honestly, I have no words. It's heartbreaking.
Thank you so much for talking to us. Some of the fans are very emotional, talking to us about how they're feeling about the passing of AKA. I'm going to try and see if I can't speak to one more person. Let's just try and move here. And throughout the day, many people have been coming here and just standing around, bystanders just watching. Let's see if we can't get these gentlemen. So you're live on SABC News. I'm sure you've heard the passing of AKA. Any thoughts, emotions, feelings?
Yeah, it's quite sad, eh?
Did you listen to his music?
I had some of his music, mostly for the youngsters.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that were some of the sentiments here on the ground as people continue coming in to pay their respects to AKA, but also standing in solidarity. This happened in Durban. Many Durbanites that I've spoken to are also saying that we simply cannot have one of our biggest stars lose their lives here, that justice needs to really be done with this matter, and calling for police to really find a solution, find the perpetrators. But that's what we have for now. We'll try and see if we can't get some of the family members. Early on, I told you that some of the family members came through. They are currently still inside. I'm told they are being briefed. Thereafter, they will be making their way to the mortuary, but we'll have all that information for you.
All right, Jade, thank you for that update on the back of that crossing from our senior reporter, Jade Polseg. The family of well-known South African rapper Keenan Forbes, known as AKA, have now confirmed the news of his passing in a statement issued by Forbes. Just a short while ago, AKA's parents confirmed that their son was shot and killed in Durban last night. A developing story. We're still awaiting the outcome of that, and we'll continue to bring you the latest on the SABC as it unfolds. We're going to go back to our earlier interview because it's really shone a spotlight on the state of South Africa, justice, law enforcement, respect for the rule of law, and perhaps, ways in which we can silence the issue of illegal guns in South Africa. Professor Gulufelo Rakubu, the acting head of Department of Safety and Security Management from Tshwane University of Technology, joined us, and we're back with you. A very good afternoon. Thank you for holding on and coming back. We were speaking about what this actually means on the back of Keenan passing. And we were speaking about some of the risk factors associated and really what it's reflecting about South Africa at this point.
Yes, thank you for having me again. We were talking about factors that play a role in gun violence, like peers, community, and another predictor, the consistent predictor of gun violence is the culture of violence. South Africa is naturally violent. We have normalized violence. So availability of and easy access to guns also perpetuate the level of gun violence. And what South Africa should remember is most guns manufactured in South Africa, they are legally manufactured. They just, due to multiple factors, fall into a pool of illegal firearms. That is why today people think all crimes are committed due to illegal firearms. No, they were legal before, most of them. And other factors that perpetuate level of gun violence and have easy access and availability is the influx of smuggled guns from the neighboring countries, and also the issue of fraud and corruption when it comes to poor enforcement of the Firearm Control Act of 2000, if I recall. And again, issue of theft and loss. And that with issue of theft and loss, mostly that have been lost have not been recovered, or it's not easy to recover. Hence, high rate of availability and easy access in our townships. Yes.
Prof, because the question then that we need to be asking is what laws should be updated to, as we look at mitigating against this serious problem. In the same breath, it can't be based on policy alone. When we look at guns, I mean, it's not just guns guns don't necessarily make people less violent. We obviously have to look at the bigger issue that South Africa is being confronted here, perhaps also for that respect for the rule of law.
Yes, we cannot entirely look at guns. This has to do with the restructuring and education, because what is the status quo teaches the current generation. It's going to be difficult for South Africa to change mindset, because now current generation is growing up surrounded by this violence. Now it is going to be like we're changing people's culture and tradition, and that is not going to work. So in fact, laws should be reviewed, and we should look at the statistics. The quarterly crime statistics should be very particular, wherein now there's a breakdown. We look into the breakdown of firearm-related crimes, specifically the use of firearm in murder or attempted murder. Because when we look at that, that is going to assist us check and review our existing programs and mechanisms, because that is going to tell us what is working and what is not working. And what South Africa should adjust to is crime has evolved. Therefore, all the mechanisms in place should also be on par with the level of criminality. And the punishment as well should be on par, because I think we are policing, we are responding as if this is 1994. Crime has evolved, and the law enforcement should also evolve in dealing with issues of crime, particularly availability of guns, because people that are not supposed to have guns have guns. And that is due to what? Corruption and fraud and maladministration and mismanagement.
Let's speak to the issue of mechanisms that need to be put in place. The confiscation of illegal firearms and ammunition in high-risk areas is an example of something that comes to the fore. But how would you respond to the issue of some who say that they are criminal groups who are operating in cahoots with security forces, as well as the police at large? How do we begin to also address that area of concern?
That area of concern is the reason why we have this so much high rate of crime, and we gain international popularity and we lose integrity as a nation. Previously, they've been mentioning amnesties, which didn't work, the bypass and the police search and seizures. Now, issues of corruption within law enforcement, that is one of the major stumbling blocks when it comes to enforcement, because the minute they don't believe in what they're supposed to enforce, we're not going anywhere. Now, law enforcement in itself should do self-introspection to identify all rotten potatoes and issues that hinder successful implementation of the set policies, because we're not going anywhere as the country. Guns will still be available from the very same law enforcers. Cases will not go anywhere. Investigations will not be a success because they are working against each other. That is why we don't even get to know who killed who, particularly when it comes to issues of gun violence. We can know of others that are domestic related, but when it comes to high profile ones, we've made peace as South Africans that we will never know the nature of their business or the nature of their work in South Africa suggests that you are likely to pass through that phase, which is not right. South Africa needs to be safe.
Prof, just in conclusion, justice delayed is justice denied. I just want to look at, where South Africa currently is. We've got a population of over 60 million. We have alarming crime stats. We are affected by socioeconomic issues exacerbated by load shedding. And I just want to know, in terms of lessons learnt, what can South Africa begin to learn from other countries? What can we begin to start putting in place to mitigate against a serious problem that's not come to the fore yet again?
Lesson learned. I think as South Africa, we've been very lax when it comes to responding to crime. And I don't know, there seems to be lack of political will. We all know the level of criminality in South Africa. We just need political buy-in because, again, policing and crime prevention is political. Then we should get buy-in. The minute we don't have political will and political buy-in, next year or 10 years to come, South Africa will still be at the very same level or escalated to another uncontrollable level. So we just need political buy-in because remember, policies are also designed by politicians. They are supposed to be implemented with political influence. Then that is the reason why today we still don't have anything on the table. Crime is going higher and higher. Yet we can reflect on the existing strategies and mechanisms to say, look, we are not doing what we are supposed to do. And we cannot be saying South Africa doesn't know what it's supposed to do. It's just supposed to clean its closet. Corruption hinders successful implementation of policies in South Africa, particularly with crime prevention and crime control.
Prof, I'm sure that it's opened a can of worms even further. We obviously have more questions and answers at this point, but we'll have to leave the conversation there. It's an example of another artist gunned down within months. And this has obviously brought to the fore the issue of violence, the issue of gun control in South Africa and the state of South Africa at large. Thank you for your time here on the SABC, Professor Kulufelo Rakubu, Acting Head of the Department of Safety and Security Management from Tshwane University of Technology, making time to chat to us. We'll have to leave the conversation there and take a quick ad break. We will continue with more news as we review it on the Week in Review with myself, Liesl Wilson. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. As expected, President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address focused on the energy crisis along with the appointment of a Minister of Electricity. The president also announced the declaration of a national state of disaster. This as the country continues to battle with the rolling blackouts. Let's take a look at some of the issues that the speech covered and perhaps look at the implications thereof. We're going to be joined by Dr. Levi Ndau, political analyst. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time here on the SABC.
Good afternoon to you, Liesl. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Thank you for having me.
We've seen that important themes were covered. One is to question whether it was inspiring enough to give an accurate account of where South Africa is, perhaps what measures are going to be put in place and where we're headed. So with the announcement of the national state of disaster in relation to the energy crisis, what difference will this emergency measure make at this juncture?
Well, Liesl, I think I would define the State of the Nation address as being the state of ESCOM address, in the sense that predictably, the president had to spend sufficient time talking about issues about ESCOM, which is exactly what all of us expected from him. Most South Africans wanted to hear the next step that the president is supposed to take on matters relating to ESCOM. Other different political parties, the Democratic Alliance, the IFP, different organized groups in South Africa had already advised the president to declare the state of national disaster on ESCOM. And I was also not surprised that that also was announced, because in my view, and I believe in the view of many people, the power cuts in South Africa is affecting everything of South African lives. It affects education, it affects the health sector, it affects food production, it affects transportation, it affects everything. And I think declaring it as the state of a disaster only to deal with electricity, in a way, you are actually saying as government, we're trying our best to do something, and that is why we want to pull all the resources available to be able to deal with matters relating to ESCOM and power cuts.
So on the back of that, I mean, there have been calls prior to the State of the Nation address, which reflected the views that the president is not doing enough in addressing the energy crisis, with calls for extraordinary measures. And now that he has declared the state of disaster, there seems to also be a lot of skeptical thoughts and opposition to it. What is your take?
It should be. South Africans are not expecting talks, but what they expect is to see the end to load shedding. It can also bring hope if indeed there is a sense of agency on the part of government to deal with this crisis. And the response on the part of government is to say, let's declare this state of national disaster so that all the other issues that might have been problematic in terms of dealing with other issues relating to electricity supply, issues relating to procurement, issues relating to the red tape that exists when certain things are supposed to happen, should be suspended so that all the other important issues relating to power supply are actually dealt with. Of course, you would have people having concerns about the state of national disaster. And in my view, their concerns are quite justifiable in the sense that we have had the state of disaster declared in South Africa, and we have had government officials misdirecting the funds that are supposed to be utilized for the state of national disaster to other things. And that caution becomes important and necessary because we have got a history that in South Africa, we have got corrupt officials, we have got corrupt politicians, and of course, if you raise these issues, you're actually doing the right thing because anything is possible in South Africa on matters relating to corruption. But equally, government should have learned and officials should have learned from other disasters in South Africa that doing wrong does not assist South Africa moving forward. It actually takes us back as a nation.
Absolutely. When the state of disaster was implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic, it seemed to open up doors for those who were opportunistic to loot. And one has to question the probability and possibilities of this not happening, given the track record of government. So everyone will be watching, all eyes will be on that. But as we head to the issue of the appointment of the Minister of Electricity, is this enough? Who do you speculate is going to be? And how effective is this? How many more appointments will be needed to solve this crisis at large? We're still awaiting.
Well, I think the sense that I get from the announcement by the president is that this appears to be a matter of urgency, and that is why there is one specific person who is given the powers of a minister to take over this responsibility so that there should be one center in terms of reporting. And quite interesting is that this minister is going to be based in the presidency, and I think for the purposes of monitoring and also getting what should therefore happen. But in terms of speculation, we just have to guess. You wouldn't know what is in the mind of the president. There are 4 MPs that have been sworn in last week, and maybe when they were sworn in, there was such in mind. Also, there is a possibility of a cabinet reshufflement in South Africa. So I think the president might play around with the members of his executive or even bring in new people. But my view is that the expectation of South Africans is that having declared the state of national disaster, appointing a minister to specifically deal with electricity should not just end up there. There should be clear output or results that everybody could see. And at the end of the day, South Africans must see the end of load shedding.
Yes, because, you know, the opposition has now also come out to raise concerns. In fact, the DA is headed to court over the matter. So when we look at what the opposition parties are raising, do they have enough of a leg to stand on? Is this a political game to gain favoritism? We're heading into elections come 2024. On the back of that criticism, what alternatives are also being offered from them on that front? I'm only asking this because at the end of the day, we have to look at whether what the president presented was enough to assure South Africans that this administration is dealing with the crisis and has their best interests at heart.
Khalid Kachalia of the DA, on the 8th of February, was speaking about the need for the declaration of the national state of disaster. The president of the IFP, just before the delivery of the State of the Nation address, spoke about the president having to declare the state of national disaster. I think generally there is consensus or agreement on the fact that the ESCOM crisis has reached a stage where there should be a national state of disaster. And I think what might be the different views would be the approach and the shape in which this state of disaster has to be implemented. And I think those are areas where political parties or leaders or political leaders in South Africa have to find ways and means to find each other. But that consensus that says we need the state of national disaster is good in the sense that the president has offered what has been requested. My concern, which I think is the concern of other political parties, will be the extent in which the state of national disaster could be implemented in favor or against certain individuals. And you don't have to take this negatively if you are in leadership. You also need to say this should be seen as an advice coming from the opposition parties, because we have, unfortunately, a history of not doing things perfectly, even though we try our best to do so. Whatever oppositions might be saying, if it is acceptable, it is time for government to say, let's take what is good from oppositions and make the best of all we could for the rest of the nation.
Yeah, so there have been mixed reactions coming through since Thursday, since the president addressed the nation, the world at large, at the State of the Nation address. We'll leave that conversation there, and thank you very much for your time here, the SABC, weighing in the back of that State of the Nation address by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Dr. Levi Ndau, political analyst. Again, we've seen that that State of the Nation address was delivered amidst, crisis within various economic and social spheres within South Africa. And as the mixed reactions coming through, looking at both the good and bad sentiments and ideas contained within the speech, criticisms and recommendations in terms of government's plans and what more needs to be done. We'll continue to monitor and see what the impact that is going to have for the rest of the country, this as we head into elections come 2024. So on that note, we'll leave that conversation there. We're going to take an ad break shortly. After this, we're also going to unpack what happened in Turkey to date. We've seen over 20,000 have already succumbed to since the earthquakes that obviously hit the region. Gift of the Givers in response have since gone over and have been assisting in that regard. We also have our senior reporter, Griselda Lewis, who is there bringing us the latest. Lots of challenges that they're facing at this point, but also a lot of work to help those who have been affected in that country. So on that note, I believe that we will, in fact, go to that story now. Gift to the Givers founder, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, is on standby for that. Dr. Imtiaz, good afternoon. Thank you for your time here on the SABC. And perhaps on the back of that, you can just tell us what the situation is currently like since the disaster occurred.
Good afternoon, Lisa. It's horrendous. Yeah. There's no other way to explain it. If you look at it collectively, what the two countries, 23 million people have been affected in the region. 10 cities and 10 provinces on the Turkish side, 6 cities and several villages on the Syrian side. Most areas, the entire buildings have come down. 500-600 buildings in one place, but it's thousands of buildings that have collapsed. And the death toll is over 24,000 already. And that is going to rise substantially. Thousands of injured people, millions of displaced people. 10 hospitals in Hatay, the region where we are working. We can comment from what we're seeing ourselves. 10 hospitals totally destroyed. I mean, the hospitals are gone. They can't even put medical teams to work because there's no facility for medical teams to work at. That's a big challenge. They try, whatever patients come out, they try to fly them to the closest city. From Adana, we needed to get to Hatay. It's only 180 kilometers. It took the team 8 hours. But all the difficulty on the road, the congestion, ambulances, trucks getting aid. When you go outside to the buildings, people are waiting outside 3 to 4 nights, sitting outside with the hope that some team will come past, dig, drill, go into the rubble and look for their family members with the hope that they will find them alive. They're sitting by their houses and they can't access anything, neither furniture, nor food, nor clothing. The temperature is -3 to -5 degrees. It's freezing cold. People sleep in their cars every night. They can't go into the buildings. The first earthquake was 7.8. The second one was 7.6. They went over 300 aftershocks, or over 6, which are big aftershocks. And the buildings are too unstable for anybody to sleep inside. Besides the injured, besides the ones that have passed on, besides those people who've lost all their homes, you have to find accommodation for several 100,000 people. But there is no accommodation. There's no community hall, no school, no building. You have to move them to other cities. You have to feed them. You have to take care of primary health care, trauma counseling. It's just a huge challenge for any country in the world.
Dr. Imtiaz, protecting critical infrastructure during a disaster can mean the difference between life and death. So just, making sure that the critical infrastructure, which comprises the systems, is obviously given special attention. So on the back of that, just as you've painted the picture of the devastation and the reality that the region faces, talk to us about the rescue efforts to date, perhaps what the role of Gift of the Givers has been, and some of the challenges as well that you continue to face on the back of what's transpired.
First of all, the challenge, it took us 2 days to get there.
Yeah.
We landed from Johannesburg to Istanbul to Adana, and from Adana, it took 8 hours for a 180-kilometer journey. When we got there, what we were promised, the camps would be ready, there'll be toilets, there'll be tents, there'll be sleeping bags, everything will be arranged. They didn't have anything of the sort ready. But I don't want to blame them. I don't want to, be angry at them. When you see the destruction on the side, you realize what difficulty these people have gone through, emotionally, psychologically. It's impossible to prepare for so many people, to take care of so many people. So I think they just, in total disarray themselves. They were very kind. They were very helpful. But you can't buy anything. The problem is they needed tents and blankets at night, but there's no way you can buy anything. Everything is destroyed. So you can't purchase. The airport is damaged. You can't land there. You can't bring trucks there. Nothing. And it takes time for the distance. Yes, trucks can come, but it takes a long, long time to get there. So it wasn't their fault. Fortunately, in this kind of business, there's international camaraderie. The Omani camp and the Turkish camp had some items which they lent us. We normally carry those things, but they said, you don't need it, we'll take care of everything. So we thought, okay, less packages to carry, because the search and rescue equipment is a lot of equipment to carry. We took all the search and rescue equipment, and we got very specialized equipment there. So the first part, of course, was getting there. The second part was having no camp. Thirdly, the snow, the rain, and the cold. -3, -5 degrees. It's tough weather. In any case, we managed to overcome that. We're in the buildings right now. And one of the buildings we are at is with the Omani team. And in that area, no international team or any team has been to as yet. So we're the first team, the Omani team, going to an area where nobody has ever been before. And it seems right now, people say there's some bodies there, we're not sure. Unfortunately, today the sniffer dogs arrived, so we have 5 sniffer dogs. We have a life locator, we have a video cam, and we have other audio equipment that can listen into the rubble, see into the rubble, and detect life under the rubble. We have all that equipment, but there is no infrastructure in terms of hospitals, halls, places. You can't take people out and send them somewhere to a health facility. There isn't anything.
Yes.
They take them in an ambulance, go to the airport, and send it to another city.
With the challenges that you've now spoken about, I mean, you're citing the weather, extreme weather as a factor. I wonder how the issue of language, is there a language barrier at this point in terms of communication? And when one identifies potential disaster hazards within the area, just now with the aftershocks, but also what other issues or problems could arise as a result of that? What are you looking out for in that sense? I can also imagine beyond humans, there are also animals that have been affected. How are you assisting in that regard as well?
To be honest, we haven't really seen any animals on site.
Okay.
The humans we've seen are those who come out of the buildings. And remember, there's a lot of Syrian refugees also in Hatay. We're speaking specifically about one city, because that's where we are.
Yes.
This thing has affected 10 provinces. In terms of security, looting can be a problem, like we had in Haiti. They were shooting and looting in the streets, protests. There's no such thing here. Yes, some of the shops have been looted, but it's probably desperate people. But nobody is a threat to you. There's no people going to harm you or hurt you. The other challenge is when you don't have the blankets and the tents, you're caught up in the hypothermia, and it's cold. So we had to stay in the buses the first night. But that problem is sorted out now. You can't get anything from local. So from 10 hours away, friends that we have are bringing items across. The Omanis have made great friends with us. They come as a government. The other problem we have is we're the only NGO team out of the 11 teams there. All the other 10 teams are from governments. They've been sent by governments. We're the only ones that do not have come on our own as an NGO. But, all of them have asked us to work with them because we're the only guys that got 5 dogs. From the 11 teams, 6 got dogs. We have 5. The others have 4 or less. And of course, we also got good equipment, and it's really a good relationship with the people. The other challenges, you have to gas detection. When you go into a building, you have to take precautions. There's no open gas. That can be a danger to you. An explosion, breathing the gas, we take precautions for that. Because we don't know what building had what. Gas is a common thing used in Turkey. It's one of the means of source of energy for them. The other challenge is the aftershocks. You can be sitting in a building and suddenly the building comes down within seconds because of the amount of aftershocks. That's a risk. It's something that, our teams always are careful about. They take precautions, but it's a high-risk job. Anything can happen at any time. You can get injured, the building can fall on you once you're inside. It's very risky, but it's not like they haven't done this before. Yeah. In terms of the language, yes, it's a big challenge. Really, in rural areas, almost nobody speaks English. And we had brought in translators from Istanbul. The moment we landed, we had translators ready, and we took them across. But even the translators, the English is not that good. English is a big problem in Turkey. And I've been there 28 times. I know the country. Yeah. So language is the problem. But, sometimes the body language, sign language, from emotions, you can make things out. And quite often you figure out what they say. The other challenge we had is we had no vehicles. We finally managed to find somebody. We hired 6 minibuses because you can't get to the sites without vehicles. And even the teams that are traveling with us, even the media teams can't get to a site to tell a story because there's no vehicles. For us to travel to see where's the civil hospitals, where's the clinic structures, we needed vehicles. Fortunately, we managed to hire 6 vehicles yesterday. what the drivers, they'll stay with us the entire period that we're there. So transport is sorted out. We managed to find toilets, so sanitation is sorted out for the teams. We got blankets and tents coming from over 10 hours away. We had other teams placed in Adana to purchase whatever comes in. So in terms of self-sufficiency, all those challenges are sorted out. Now it's about going to the sites, as we're doing already, and hopefully find people alive that we can take out, or maybe even bring out bodies to bring about closure for those people who are sitting there every day, in fact, not sleeping day and night, just sitting on the site, waiting for somebody to come to find somebody in the family, whether alive or dead.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we need to send out blankets, and although at the moment there seems to be a lot of tents, blankets, and food coming for the refugees are sitting in the streets in the cars, somebody has been taking care of that. We don't know where it's coming from, but there's a constant supply. And even in the stadium itself, where there are lots of people and refugees, food is coming for them, then they're taken care of. Somebody is sending it from somewhere. As an aside, we're running a huge operation in Syria also. We're in that country for 11 years. We run one of the biggest hospitals in the north of the country. We have 320 medical and non-medical personnel. And we've opened our second hospital called Al Hilal, and we've been offered a field hospital to have the third facility. We're assisting with search and rescue. We're providing food for the casualties coming to the hospital and for the victims outside the hospital. So we're busy with several, and we even sent a lot of tents across yesterday from Turkey into Syria. So we are running both operations. On the Turkish side, it's difficult, they're not sure yet if they need medical teams. They don't know where to put them. There's no hospitals. We've got 100 medical personnel ready to come across if needed.
Dr. Imtiaz, we are running out of time, but I don't know if it's too early to ask, how long are you still going to be there to assist in that regard? And when we look at maintaining morale, you spoke about the psychological and emotional turmoil. How are you making sure that the team is up to scratch and feeling motivated to continue?
Well, we know the team. We select the right people to join us.
Yes.
The team leaders and the makeup, the temperament of people, they've traveled with us before. We know their makeup. And the first night, after they got there, they've been traveling from Tuesday night, awake the whole of Tuesday, awake the whole of Tuesday night, awake the whole of Wednesday morning, awake the whole till 1 o'clock on into Thursday morning, get to the camp after 8 hours, long road, see the destruction on the side, see the pain and hardship, and then come to a cabin and say, sorry, there's no place for you to sleep. And you would think that would break the morale. No, we'll make a plan. We'll share the tents. We'll sit in the bus. We'll cover each other. Early morning, Friday, they're ready. When can we go to work? And actually, they worked past close to midnight yesterday. Sure. And the teams and the authorities are saying, what kind of a team are you people? You never seem to tire. You never seem to want to take rest. You just want to work. And our teams have always been like that. They determine, they focus for the job. It's sometimes within 7 and 10 days, depending if operations start winding down, you can't find any more bodies, you can't find any more live people, and once you realize you're not serving any purpose anymore, that's the time to come back home.
Dr. Imtiaz, let's leave that conversation there. Thank you very much for joining us on the SABC and giving us that update. Gift of the Givers founder, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, giving us an update. We've now heard reports of the death toll in Turkey following that devastating earthquake has reached over 22,000 victims. Thousands of victims have been evacuated from the quake zone in southern Turkey. And we're obviously watching as it is a developing story. Our reporter, Griselda Lewis, is also there bringing us the latest on the ground. So we'll continue to monitor it as it unfolds. But it's time for a quick ad break, and we'll continue with more news on the other side when we return. All right, so welcome back. In other news now, the case against the man accused of arson after the fire at Parliament last year, Zandile Mafe, has been postponed to the 24th of February for the state and the defence to engage on his referral to mental evaluation. The parties have agreed that the accused be referred to a mental institution to determine whether he is fit to stand trial. However, they differed on the preferred psychiatric facility. The state wants him to be sent to Valkenburg Hospital, but Mafe objects to the facility.
Proceedings in the High Court in Cape Town were delayed by a few minutes. A police officer told the judge that Mafe had requested food, and he was hopeful that Mafe would come up from the holding cells. A moment later, Mafe arrived for his brief court appearance after having appeared in absentia for a while. He requested an interpreter in his mother tongue of Setswana, which was granted by the court. Mafe and his legal counsel asked that he be sent for mental evaluation, and the state acceded. But Mafe, through his defense, told the court he was uncomfortable going to Falkenberg Hospital, alleging he had received ill treatment at the facility previously.
The accused is very adamant that if such referral is going to be made, it should not be to Falkenberg. And that's because of whatever nasty experiences he says he had there. Now, I raised that over the phone to my learned friend yesterday, but he seems to be of the view that that is the only facility available. But not being a Capetonian, my junior says there are two others, my learned friend says there's only one.
The state says Falkenberg is the only designated facility with the required specialists. Judge Nathan Erasmus raised concerns over the backlog at the facility and indicated that if Mafe jumped the queue, it would be an injustice to those on the waiting list. The state has been requested to provide a report to explain why Falkenberg is more suitable than other possibilities.
The defense has also come up with two facilities, which is Tegland and Lendegier, which they believe are also suitable for him to be sent for observation. So the court has instructed us to come up with a report, which we need to table before the court, before the judge, Judge Erasmus, before the 24th, where we will explain to say in the report that whether the facility is suitable, the other two facilities are suitable for observation. On our side, we know that a designated place is Falkenberg. The other two places are not. We know the other two places are for rehabilitation.
The court will also explore an option for the accused to be referred to a facility in another province. Mafe made gestures toward the prosecutor before he left the dock. Thule Joga, SABC News, Cape Town High Court.
Right, so that's where we'll leave it for you today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Tomorrow we're back for a look at the week ahead. Until then, take care. For myself, Liesl Wilson, and the team, it's goodbye for now.